Wir kommen zum dritten Key Speaker von heute und auch er ist Doktor der Psychologie, er ist Autor, Keynote Speaker und Innovationsberater. Er hat ganz verschiedene Kunden schon gehabt, ganz große wie Airbus oder British Museum oder American Express und heute ist er hier für uns und wird uns erzählen, wie oder sozusagen eine kleine Innovationslektion erteilen. Welcome here in Zurich, it's Tendayi Vicky. I have it for you.
All right. Thank you. Wonderful. Hey, everyone. My name is Tendayi. Let's just check if this is working. That's the last slide. All right, I'm going to do the presentation backwards. Start from the back. Hey, here we go. Okay, cool. Thank you for having me here. It's a real pleasure to be here. I'm going to have a quick conversation with you that I think builds on everything that you've been hearing so far. So I do like the conversation around how when you have complex problems, you cannot use linear practices to actually solve those problems. And one thing that we do have in our education systems, which then permeates into business actually, is this idea that they are visionary people who are really powerful and great and creative at coming up with the best ideas. But actually, if we try and use the visionaries to teach innovation, we start creating problems. And the way we create problems is because there are no visionaries when it comes to innovation. Innovation is about failing all the time and just falling flat on your face. Now, the problem we have is that everybody wants to be Steve Jobs. And what we do is we always tell the stories of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg when we're trying to illustrate that you should become an entrepreneur. So using Steve Jobs and Bill Gates to teach about innovation is the same thing as telling your students that if they want to be actors, their careers are going to be like Tom Cruise and Michelle Pfeiffer and all that. And what we know is that that's not the typical career of an actor. The typical career of an actor is working at McDonald's, right? And so what we really need to be thinking about is how do we really teach innovation the right way? So the first thing that we need to embrace is that whenever we're trying to work on something new, something creative, and something challenging, most of the time the things we come up with are not going to work. So 7 out of 10 of new product innovations flop. But here's the interesting secret that nobody else knows. You know the 3 out of 10 that become successful? Those 3 out of 10 are actually successful at something different from what they started working on. So the failure rate of new ideas is 10 out of 10, right? And yet when I'm working with companies or I'm speaking with teachers, everybody's looking for that one big idea, right? Leaders are like, we need to find this one great idea. And where does this come from? It comes from school, right? It's not like when you were in school and your teacher set you an assignment to write an essay. You couldn't submit 12 essays, and then the teacher chooses the best one and grades you on that, right? You couldn't do that. You had to submit only one. And so when you go into business, people are thinking, well, you need to have one great idea and then work on that idea until that idea becomes successful. So we build this culture that's sort of anti-innovation from the way we raise children and we teach them and then we put them into businesses. But here's what we know. The best way to have a good idea is to have loads of ideas. That's the best way to have a good idea. So the question is, how do you actually build an environment in which these things can actually emerge? How do we teach and raise people and educate people to have loads of ideas with the anticipation that most of your ideas are going to fail, but that in having loads of ideas, your best ideas emerge out of that, right? That's really the fundamental question that we have. So this is Fred Wilson. He's a venture capitalist. You know venture capitalists, right? They invest in startup ideas. So which means that every day of his life, he has people that are coming to him and pitching him ideas. Startups come up, I have this idea. Another startup comes up, I have this idea. And every single day of his life, his job is to pick the winning idea. Because if he doesn't pick winning ideas, he loses money. That's his job, every single day. But do you know what he says? Fred Wilson says, I always work with the 1/3 rule. Which is that, and listen to this, 1/3 of all my investments will fail. The other third will underperform my expectations, which means they'll probably just give me back the money I gave them. And then I will make all my money from the 1/3 investments that succeed. So the person whose job it is every single day to pick winners is saying, I can't do it. I just make investments with the expectation that 66% of them are going to completely bomb, and I'll only make money on 1/3. Right? This is the professional venture cap, the billionaire guy. And yet in school, we're standing there as teachers and teaching students to submit their one best idea, give us their one best answer, work in this linear fashion that allows them to produce only one thing. And yet in the world of ideas, we have loads of ideas and then create an environment in which the winning idea bubbles up and actually emerges. So here's a way to frame it that you can use with your students and anybody else you work with if you want. When you're working on innovation, it's as if somebody gave you a bag of puzzle pieces, right? So it's a bag full of puzzle pieces, but they didn't give you the picture to solve it with. So you just have a bag of puzzle pieces and you don't have any picture, all right? Now, the crazy thing about it is that inside the bag, there are puzzle pieces in there that have nothing to do with the puzzle you're trying to solve. So you don't have a picture, you have a bag of puzzles with puzzle pieces in there that have nothing to do with the puzzle that you're trying to solve. But it gets worse. Whenever you think you've figured something out and you've put all the puzzles together, right, the next puzzle piece you solve destroys the whole thing. This is how it works. Just to give you a really quick example. If you're working on an innovation project, you go talk to customers, they say they love your idea, they have the problem, and they would buy the product if you launched it, and then you launch the product and they don't buy. So now you got to go back and unravel the whole puzzle piece you were working on and start building it again to figure out why they didn't buy. And that's the chaos that is innovation. Innovation is a wicked problem, and we try and teach people to think about it this way. You have to think about innovation as the messy part, not the straight part. And so what we need to be teaching people is to get comfortable with ambiguity. Step into something when you don't know the answer. Just start doing the work. And then you have to be comfortable with, if you step into something without knowing the answer, you're going to stumble and fail. So you also have to be comfortable with that, right? Because if we're not comfortable with that, then we're not going to be able to come up with all the creative solutions that will solve the complex problems that we're trying to solve in this world. And the reason why you have to be comfortable with failure and ambiguity is because you're dealing with uncertainty. The major problem that we have inside business and inside education is we teach people that they have execution challenges, that they're supposed to be executing and solving problems and executing. But actually, when you're working on innovation, it's a searching problem. You're searching for solutions. Your job is to reduce uncertainty. So you'll do some stuff, test your ideas, uncertainty goes down. Then you'll do something, and then uncertainty goes up again, because just that's the way it works. And then you keep working, and then uncertainty goes down. That's basically what you're trying to do. You're searching for the optimal solutions for the problems that you're trying to solve. You're not executing on your ideas. So the question is, how do we create an education system that allows people to learn how to search rather than execute? Because if we do that, we're able to raise people that are really great at doing innovation. So let me give you an illustration, because I work as strategizer and we work with innovation teams. Let me give you an illustration of how we do this with an actual innovator. So there's a guy, he's like, I'm going to make loads of money because I have a really great idea. So we're like, okay, fantastic, that's really great. We don't want to discourage you or anything. So let's actually work through a process that might help you figure out whether or not you have a great idea. And then we say to them, the first thing we're going to do is we're not going to try and crowd you out. We're not going to try and stop you from dreaming. That got stuck in my beard. We're not going to stop you from dreaming. What we're going to do is we're going to allow you to design like you're right. So just like design your idea like you're right. Come up with as many ideas as you want. We use this tool called the business model canvas. People can ideate and use sticky notes and just go crazy, right? Design like you're right. That's your choice. And that's really important because you want to give people the freedom to actually do that. But then we flip the script on them and we say, what really matters now is for you to test your idea like you're wrong. So you design like you're right, then you test like you're wrong. And that's how you figure out whether or not you have something that's actually going to work. So we tell them, for this idea that you've actually come up with, what would have to be true in the world for this idea to work? Right? And then they have to come up with all the assumptions that they're making that would have to be true for their idea to work. And we map all these assumptions that would have to be true for their idea to work around their idea so they can see. Now for me, this is the innovation moment. This is the moment when you say, I have a really great idea, but man, I don't know if it's going to work. Now, how many of you today are willing to go to your boss and say, I have this really great idea, and these are all the things that would have to be true for that idea to work, but I don't know if they're true or not? Right? And that's really the kind of situation that we're actually trying to build. So when it comes to like business model design, there are 4 questions that have to be true for any idea to work. The first question is, and these are broad categories of questions that we make people think about. The first question is, can it be done at all? Is this feasible? Can it be done technically? It doesn't matter that you don't know whether it can be done today. Your job is to figure out if it can be done. And if it can be done, it doesn't mean that it should be done. Just because it can be done, it doesn't mean that it should be done. All right? So the next question is, should it be done? Who are the customers? What value is it going to create? This is one of the questions that you have to also answer. The next question is, will it have impact? Or can it be done profitably? Right? That's another question that you have to answer. And then the final question we have them answer is, can it be done at scale? Those are the 4 questions that we have them work on when they have to map out all the things that have to be true for their idea to work. The process of mapping out all the things that have to be true for your idea to work is about communicating to yourself that you're about to step into something that you don't understand and you don't know, but you're going to figure it out because you have a frame of reference with questions that you can actually ask yourself. And that's the way that we apply and use this tool. And so, rather than try and come up with the absolute perfect answer, the one solution that works, the 10x idea. I've heard leaders say that. We need 10x ideas. Rather than try and come up with that on day one, you just start from where you are. And then you start navigating your way towards success. So one of the tools that we have, for example, is this Fringe Report that we use where we have people just tell us the general idea that they're working on, right? And then they tell us what they've done so far and what they've learned so far from the work that they've done. But that's not what really matters to us. What matters to us from an innovation perspective is for people to say what they still don't know. This is the most important question when it comes to working on. This is the stuff that we still don't know. This is the most important question for innovators to ask themselves. This is what we still don't know, and this is what we're going to do next in order to make those ideas come to life. Right? And so that's the fundamental way we approach ambiguity and we approach failure, and we track progress towards success. And so, just to wrap up my keynote, I'd like to tell you that forget about the visionary. Okay? Because everybody wants to be Steve Jobs, but the Steve Jobs they want to be is the Steve Jobs launching the iPhone. They don't want to be the Steve Jobs everyday struggle, failure, and all of these things. They want to be the famous Steve Jobs. Instead, what we want to do is to have our children and everybody that we're teaching embrace this person. Because when you're working on innovation, you're much more likely to blow stuff up and work on stuff that's going to blow up in your face and stuff that's not going to actually succeed. And that's what we need to embrace, the uncertainty and the ambiguity that comes with actually doing this work. So thank you very much for your time. We have a comic that's just about to come out called Biz for Kids, which is a business model comic book for kids that you could probably use as a resource. So if you Google that, you can probably find where it is. It's coming out soon. It's just in production. But thank you very much. Really appreciate the time. I enjoyed having this conversation with you. Thank you.
Tendayi, yes, you can give it to me. Und jetzt haben wir schon viel gehört heute Nachmittag in einer Stunde. Was ist hängen geblieben?
Das Wichtigste, was ist hängen geblieben? Dass es nicht gut, also dass sozusagen das Systemdenken wichtig ist und nicht linear. Ja, das ist so das, was hängen geblieben ist.
Nicht linear denken, sondern in Circle denken. Ich frage vielleicht hier noch, was ist hängen geblieben?
Heutige Probleme nicht mit Techniken und Ideen von gestern lösen.
Okay, auch hier vielleicht noch eine Stimme. Was ist hängen geblieben? Nichts hängen? Darf ich hier fragen?
Fehler machen ist super und sollte erlaubt werden.
Und man kann gleich Steve Jobs werden.
Genau.
Wunderbar.